Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas. And today I have with me Philip Charles-Pierre. Sometimes I butcher them. I think 3 years of French in high school paid off here. So Philip Charles-Pierre, CEO and co-founder at Semsee. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the company correctly. It's Semsee. So
that's correct.
Philippe, first of all, thank you for joining me today. I hope that you had a great 4th of July weekend. We're recording today on July 6th, and I see that you are in New York City, right?
I am in New York City.
Okay, so New York City in July is either beautiful or hot. I'm guessing hot.
It's nice, hot and muggy.
Hot and muggy. Okay.
Hot and muggy.
Cool. Very fun. I'm in Atlanta. It's hot, but I rarely leave home unless I want to. It's the beauty of being remote.
Well, we love Atlanta. My wife's from Atlanta.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, she's from a town called Newnan, and her on her mother's side, and on her dad's side, she is from Palmetto. And we got married at a place called Semsee, which is south of the airport.
Awesome. So we always give the guest to the chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Semsee?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and good afternoon. Semsee, as you spelled it, SEMSEE, is really a play on Semsee, SEMCI, which is single entry multiple carrier interface. And essentially what we have built, Tony, and those of you listening out there, is we've built a platform that helps agents connect to carriers. Ultimately, we thought, and as we were building this company, that in the P&C space, on the commercial insurance space, the agent was going to continue to be the main distribution point. And we've always believed in that. But at the same time, we always thought that there were ways in which we can make their journey, their life, their habits much more efficient and much more digital, not as a way to replace them, but as a way to enhance what they do and the services they provide, especially in consulting and doing risk mitigation for these small business owners that are sort of, I think, the lifeblood of America. And so what we've built is this platform that allows an agent to connect to any number of carriers when they're quoting a BOP or workers' comp or a cyber or a GL or a specialty program. And we do so by then connecting them to their appointed carriers. But we also work with wholesalers and networks and others who then supplement that by helping the agent connect to other carriers that are beyond their appointments themselves. So ultimately, we are a sort of two-sided marketplace by first helping these agents connect to markets and be able to serve their clients. But at the same time, we're also a terrific opportunity for carriers, whether they are large or small, to be able to connect to these agents and help them in real time at what I call the point of sale. So that when an agent has a particular risk in hand that they need to quote and they need to sell, they can go onto our platform, search, not only we help them to define the classification for that business, but then we also help them understand who has appetite for that business. And then because of that, it allows the carriers who have appetite to raise their hand and say, not only do I have appetite, but I want your business. And so we create ways in which the carriers can do that and ultimately create this happy marriage of connectivity between the agent and the carrier. And by the end of the day, what we're really doing is helping to satisfy the small business owners who are really wanting their lifeblood of what they're doing to be protected.
Okay, that's fantastic explanation. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing that jumped out at me is that you talked about risk mitigation for small businesses. This is very interesting because historically, and I've never been a broker, but what I have heard many times is that small commercial is very profitable for the carrier, but it's not very profitable for the broker, right? So much so that the producer often doesn't get paid unless there's a certain amount of premium. And very often they complain that it's not profitable to service the small commercial book, right? It's hard to figure that out. So if it's hard to service a small commercial book, it's even harder to provide them with any sort of risk management,
That's
right?
right.
So how does the platform help my brokerage provide risk management to my small business clients?
Really, really good question. The biggest thing that an agent has come to us and said why our solution, and or one of the reasons our solution is incredibly powerful, is first and foremost, they may not even know how to classify a business, and we help them to do that. And that takes time. The second thing, and maybe even the biggest time suck, is who's got appetite for that business? Is it carrier A? Is it carrier B? Is it carrier D? Is it carrier E? And part of what we do is say, based on that business, the location, the description, here are the 5 to 10, or maybe it's 20 carriers who have appetite. And then with one click, they can create an application for any number of those carriers to submit. And then what we also do is when those quotes come back, we actually help the agent understand the delta between the various premiums that they're being given, so that they understand the coverage, not just the price. And so ultimately, what we're saving them is time to understand what is this business, who's got appetite for this business, instead of having to rekey it to 5 different carriers differently with the same doggone information. They could just do it once, but then within seconds, they're getting a response, and we're helping them understand the delta between all of that. So what we're really doing is removing the crap work, frankly, of actual submission and quoting and the blocking and tackling of that, so that they can do that in minutes, and therefore spend much more time understanding it and ultimately selling it to their customer. But not just selling it, because selling it is really a consultative sale, and we want to empower the agent to be even better consultants.
Okay, so you said something that got me really excited. Okay, so the first round of InsurTech 1.0, and even before we had the word InsurTech, a lot of the technology investments were comparative raters. First in personal lines, and then a little bit in commercial lines. And the problem with comparative raters, in my opinion, having never worked as a broker, is that they commoditize something that's not a commodity, right? I'm a big Bill Wilson fan. Like even auto insurance is not a commodity. We certainly treat it, the customer certainly treats it as a commodity, right? So the problem with the first set of comparison engines is that they were entirely price, right? And I, to the best of my knowledge, haven't found. I think that the comparison engine that's going to be very successful and that is doing the right thing is the one that advises on the coverage. So when you said we help the agents understand the delta between the premiums, that like 10,000 alarms went off in my head, right? Like is he saying what I think he's saying? So how does Semsee help the agent understand the coverage versus premium that the different carriers are offering?
Thank you for diving, because we really are passionate about this. But let me walk you through, not only to answer your question, but let me step back for a second and say, part of what makes Semsee different is that even at the price level, we only work with carriers to get a premium that is a bindable quote and not an indication. One of the lessons we've learned, both on the personal line space and early commercial lines, is it's easy to maybe narrow down and dummy the questions of the carriers to 3 or 5 or 10, and then give you an indication. But invariably, those quotes and that premium changes. And so one of the first things we decided was we weren't going to do that. We were going to work with the carriers as they are And we would take it upon ourselves to try to create some uniformity in how we ask the questions without having to alter any of the underwriting principles of the carrier. And so to start with, our quotes are all bindable quotes. And I think that is a big first step versus an indication, which inherently or invariably changes as you answer more underwriting questions once you're hooked into that particular price. That's the first piece. Because we're asking all of the underwriting questions and we're really thorough on behalf of the carrier, it allows us to then say, premium A is $100, premium 2 is $105, but here are the coverages that it comes with. Here are the coverages it doesn't come with on a per carrier basis, line by line by line, so you can compare, oh, the glass coverage for my restaurant is $50,000 for this quote, but even though it's $5 more, but it's only $25,000 for this other quote, and is it worth it to me? And because ultimately we want to be able to sell it not on price. I actually don't believe agents are selling just on price. I do believe they're selling on value.
Well,
I think value matters here. Now,
so
they're not going to go to the most expensive just for the sake of going to the most expensive. But I do think the agents care about value because they don't want an upset customer. That's if there's a claim, right? Because it doesn't look good for them either.
So there's agents and there's agents, right?
Yes.
There's agents and there's order takers, and the assumption that agents would be disintermediated away, which is an assumption that some of the early insurtechs made, and they were wrong, especially in commercial lines, but they were wrong in general. Yeah. That assumption was because they thought of agents as order takers, which some are. Sadly, and that's our fault as an industry, right? It shouldn't happen, but it does happen. But good agents are true advisors, true long-term advisors too, and they will never be disintermediated away, especially not in commercial lines. So yeah, I agree with you completely. Like the value of the agent remains. We're just giving them better technology.
That's right. I mean, ultimately, what the agent needs is not to be replaced. What the agent needs is technology to make the stuff that's mundane easy and efficient. So give them more time to do their job. I haven't seen too many studies that indicate that the small business owner doesn't want to deal with an agent to ask questions and to understand their policy. I haven't seen a study that says that.
Correct.
But I have seen studies that say, but it's just a pain to get a quote.
Correct.
And that's what we're saying.
Yeah. No. And even the generational piece. So I'm very passionate about the generational piece. I literally wrote the book about insurance, about millennials in insurance as employees, not as clients. And I'm not a demographer, but I play one on TV. You know, I apply research from primary researchers to the insurance industry. But what I can tell you is millennials and Gen Zers, especially millennials who are inheriting a lot of small businesses from their parents, they don't want to go into your office to get a quote, but they want to be able to get a quote at 3 a.m. when they finally made it home from the cupcake shop, right? Because they didn't open a cupcake shop to run a business. They opened it to make cupcakes, and much less to worry about insurance, right? So they're looking at like when they finally get around to insurance, last thing they thought about, right? So they want to be able to get a quote at 3 a.m. and then they want to be able to get advice via text message, via whatever medium makes sense for them when they're ready for that advice. But they do want the advice.
Yes.
So I think that we're absolutely on the same page on that.
Absolutely. But here's the other thing that I think these millennials and those who are younger want. They want transparency.
100%.
And I think it's very hard to provide transparency in insurance if you're spending 80% of your time blocking and tackling and therefore just trying to get to the quote you get first.
And
But if you're able to easily get a price or a premium, and you're easily able to discern the delta between the various quotes, then you can offer that up to these millennials or whomever, and have a conversation about coverage, what it means, so that if I'm operating a cupcake shop, to your example, and I said, oh, I think I need $100,000 of coverage for my tables. But the agent says, in reality, when things happen to the types of tables you have, it's no more than 50,000. You can go down for 50,000, but you may want to go up with something else.
The liabilities is where the big deal
That's
is. Yeah.
transparency.
Yeah.
That's being helpful.
Yeah. And transparency is hard for agents, because the customer doesn't understand that it's a whole separate company that's actually providing the insurance, right? So the customer assumes that you have perfect visibility into the carrier, and you don't, right? The better we can get the technology so that you do have the right visibility. So
that's actually a really important
right?
piece. I actually think part of the challenge and part of what we try to solve is the carriers, on the other hand, they're dependent on emails, newsletters, a conference here or there, their territory managers, to sort of help thousands upon thousands of agents know the latest and greatest about their product. That can be solved with much better point of sale messaging. So if you're on Semsee and you're trying to place a cupcake shop, not only is it cool that we can offer you, here are the types of carriers who offer a solution for that, but by the way, this one particular carrier, they specialize in these kinds of cupcake shops. This one, they love it, a cupcake shop that doesn't have this oven, while this other one loves this kind of oven or loves these tables. There are ways where, as you're quoting, you can get that information and for it to sing at the same time, versus after the fact, or relying on memory, even if things might change, and therefore
things
your memory
change
is
all the
lagging
time.
behind.
Yeah. So this has already been a fantastic conversation, but I am curious, and I did not warn you. So
no worries.
We could
absolutely. I love conversations that are extempore.
So I'd love to like talk about some of what are likely competitors,
sure.
But we can always cut it out at the end. But this reminds me a lot of a few other insurtechs that I'm familiar with, right? So I'd love to hear how Semsee is different. Okay. So the first one that reminds me of a little bit, not a ton, is Ask Kodiak, that focuses on helping figure out the class code. But then again, Ask Kodiak white labels into other insurtechs, so maybe you're even using them. But
we are in fact using Ask Kodiak.
That's what I figured. That's what I.
So Alan and
I was
Mike
curious if that was the case.
More than competitors. Absolutely.
So then the Bold Penguin, right, does seem like they're doing something similar in my limited understanding. And the other one that comes to mind is Talage. Also seems like they're doing something similar. So I'm curious, are those competitors, and how is Semsee different from those two?
Sure. Yeah, I think those are folks who some would consider competitors. I think the competitors that I not worry about, but I think about the most is history. And because I think, and the reason why I say history is this need has existed in the commercial space for a very long time. And people who've been in better positions than at Semsee could have and should have probably solved this, but didn't. And what has happened is agents have essentially solved it themselves by creating homegrown solutions.
So
that to me is our biggest competition. Frankly.
Homegrown. I was gonna say I'm not afraid to name them by name. I'm not sure if I'm reading your mind or not. You don't have to agree or
I would be if you're reading my mind, I would tell you good luck with that.
But Accord should have figured this out a decade ago,
yes.
Right? If they were on the ball, right? Now a LexisNexis or a Verisk could have figured this out, but it's not directly but a court should have figured this out, and they were
I
asleep at
think
the
part
wheel.
of the challenge, I think, with a lot of the quote unquote folks who've been in the industry for a long time is their business models don't match with the business model that you need in order to solve this. And I
Okay,
think they're stuck in a business model
so
that requires it to be, it's an expensive to set up, and then it's expensive to maintain, and therefore they've made it really hard to switch.
okay, so so
And
so
then because of that, they've become cash cows that don't incentivize for, I think, a lot of evolution in technology to be, and therefore on some level, new types of business models that I think you don't just need new business in order to be, I think, cutting edge. You've got to have great technology and a thought process and certainly marketing, but your business model has to match that too. And I think that is a big challenge for I think for a lot of the legacy players who on some are attempting to do that now. I would say a bit late, but the ones that you have mentioned, I consider them, some level competitors. I think both Talaj and both Penguin, who you mentioned, I know those folks very well. They do a really great job. I don't think they're 100% focused on what we're focused on. It doesn't really matter who you name. I will tell you, I don't think that anybody is focused on the agent the way we're focused on. From user experience to the kinds of carriers we work with, to the products we put on our platform, to the daily, in fact, we're having a hackathon as we speak today and tomorrow. All we're doing in these 2 days, where the entire company is focused on, is how to make our form better, more efficient, friendlier for the agent. I don't think anybody else is doing that. And that's what makes us different and by doing that, we think we ultimately also are serving the carriers who are dependent on these agents for distribution.
okay, yeah, it makes sense. So real quick, what's the revenue model like? Who pays for it? Do the carriers pay for it? Do the brokers pay for it? How is it
Yeah.
priced?
Yeah, so revenue models, always interesting. So for us, the way we think about it is we are at first a SaaS-based business that the agents pay to use the product. But in addition to that, we have had carriers approach us not only to pay to be on the platform, but they've subsequently have come to us with proposals to, hey, how do I market a new product that I have within this platform, so that essentially becomes an opportunity for them to market themselves to a captive audience. And so you can imagine that. And then thirdly, we do provide the carriers interesting insights and data that makes them better at working not only with the agent, but also in understanding how their products are performing in the marketplace.
Okay, and I'm always curious, how did you realize that this was a need? How did the idea come up?
I first need to give credit to our initial funders, D.E. Shaw and Nafila, who really saw this and hired me to help them sort of investigate this. I don't come from the insurance space. I come from the travel space,
Okay.
As well as the real estate space. But in both of those industries, just like in insurance, an agent is still important, especially on the real estate side. No matter what people think, 95% of homes are still purchased through a real estate agent. But what I did in both instances was help build companies and technology to make the agent and to enable the agent to be better. And so this is industry number 3 around the concept of how do you build technology to help the agent or enable the agent to be better and more efficient. And so when they spoke to me about it, the folks at D.E. Shaw and Nafila, I really fell in love with the fact that this is a really dynamic industry that is slow moving, but has this legacy of data and technology that hasn't been put fully together. And we thought that there was a real opportunity in doing so, not just for carriers, but in reality for agents. I think a lot of insurance techs start by trying to reach the carriers because they've got the quote unquote deeper pocketbooks. But we always thought that the real problem is with the agent and solving the problems that they have. And our bet was by doing so and really helping, Jane and Joe, agent in Middle America to the, East Coast or West Coast or Florida or Chicago, that the carriers will therefore become fans of Semsee, and we're very fortunate where that has happened.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for the history. It's been great to have you on. I look forward to see you guys continue to grow. You've actually for an insurtech, you are one of the elder statesmen, so to speak, right? 5 years old, according to LinkedIn. So that's a mature insurtech. And when this goes live, I will tag you on LinkedIn, and I will tag Semsee on LinkedIn. And thank you for coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me. And we must be mature, because I'm certainly ordering a heck of a lot more Ben Gay to put on the joints here. So
I love that.
yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much, Tony.